Hi, I'm Sam Weep, and this video is brought to you by MysteryWritingMastery.Thinkific.com, which is an online school for mystery writers. I want to talk to you about how writing can be a joy, and that is a weird topic for a crime writer to bring up, since our typical subject matter is death and violence and crime and things like that. But I think it's really important, because recently I've seen a whole lot of social media posts about how writing is a chore, how it's impossible to do given the circumstances of the world, how, the last few years have made it impossible to write. And while I think that negativity is coming from an honest place and that people are frustrated, I also think that it's not the most productive mindset to have. And it might be worth cultivating a more joyful mindset. And this is not about tricking yourself or looking on the bright side of life. It's just looking at writing for what it is and not the expectations that others and yourself have placed on it. Because those don't or shouldn't exist. Nobody really cares if you write or not. This is not a life or death thing. This should be a source of joy. I love writing. I love sitting in a room working out the details of a story. I love revision. I'm even starting to like submission. And after you have a few acceptances of stories or books and things like that, the anticipation of that actually becomes a little bit fun. That's not to say that each part of the writing process does not have its attendant anxieties and worries and problems. And I have been writer's blocked. I have been frustrated, career-wise or artistically. So I do know that those are real. Those are real problems, and I'm not trying to downplay those. And I'm also not trying to disregard, the real life circumstances that people are going through. If you've had a crisis in your life or a trauma in your life, of course, writing is going to take a back seat and it's going to be more difficult. But I think if you start to look at writing as a source of joy, it also becomes the thing that gets you through those periods in your life. It's a constant. It's something that you can return to. And the frustrations of it, even though those are real, are pretty minor. And I think that that's what really bothers me about that deluge of negativity on social media, is that writing is a privilege, right? I have worked every terrible job, from warehouse working to, restaurants, to doing cleanup at conventions and all sorts of terrible things. And this is not, to present myself as some working class hero, but writing is so much better than the best of those jobs. It's just not that bad, especially given the state of the world. And yes, things are a mess, and the pandemic has made things very difficult for everyone. But, you're not risking your life sitting down at the page. You're not dealing with the same kind of stress that a frontline worker or a healthcare worker is dealing with. And it's good to keep those kinds of things in mind. As far as advice for cultivating that sense of joyfulness in writing, I wish I had some sort of cognitive behavioral psychological trick or a human potential movement slogan that would, just serve as a silver bullet for you, but I don't. I think that the best advice I can give is to go back to what brought you to writing in the first place. And for most of us, for all of us, I think, it's reading. What were the things that you read for enjoyment? What were the things that you read that made you feel, holy shit, this is the greatest thing ever? This kind of story is what moves me. For me, it always comes back to detective novels. Whether it's the John D. MacDonald, Travis McGee series, or Dashiell Hammett and Raymond Chandler, or Lawrence Block, Sue Grafton, Walter Mosley, and that sort of 80s and 90s group of crime writers. That's where my heart lies. So discovering new detectives that fall into that that genre. That's what I enjoy reading more than anything. More than any of the lit books that I like, or, true crime or anything like that. I love detective books, noir books, crime fiction. So I know that if I'm stuck, I can go and pick up, a Sue Grafton book or Josephine Tey or someone like that, and just get a sense of enjoyment out of it. And I think that that's a good thing to have. Who are your comfort authors? And often those are not people who are really fashionable, right? You don't see a lot of posts about how great Josephine Tey is, but I think that her Alan Grant series is as good as, any detective novels ever written. So I would start with that. And then also I would look at what you're writing. If you're writing something that is very autobiographical, or if you're writing something where the motive might be more about your career, or more about impressing someone, or more about matching the kind of story that you're reading in the Paris Review, maybe take a look at, is there a story that you could tell that is more fun? Someone on Twitter had a great question about why short stories weren't as popular nowadays. And one of the people who responded was a really famous writer, and they said that short stories are about ideas and novels are about people. And there's definitely part of that, which is true. But I also just found myself thinking, what a terrible idea that short stories have to be about ideas, that you have to have this idea that you are communicating. Short stories are just stories. They can be fun. I think that stories that are written like that actually have more deeper ideas than the ones where a writer is sitting there saying, I want to communicate this political idea, or I want to, be seen in this way, and they're writing something to show that. I think that you actually do a better job of that when you start with something that you love, something that brings you joy. So hopefully that's helpful. If not, feel free to reach out and we can commiserate together. Thanks. This is brought to you by MysteryWritingMastery.Thinkific.com. If you go over to our page, you can sign up for Beginning Your Mystery, which is a free online course about finding and developing ideas for mystery novels.